And here we have case 24. From low power, the epidermis looks normal. The top of the dermis, as it comes into focus here, looks pretty normal except for a little perivascular lymphocytes. But down here, this part of the dermis is disturbed and disorganized, right? There's this vague, hazy kind of ring shape, and there's some increased cellularity here. And if we look closer, we can see that the outside of this vague ring shape has increased cells with bland, round oval nuclei and increased pale pink to gray cytoplasm. These are histiocytes. And the histiocytes here are forming this vague aggregate or kind of ring around a central area of degenerated collagen with myxoid or mucin material mixed in with it. You can kind of see this bluish haziness right here. This is an older slide and a kind of poor quality scan, so you can't see it very well. But on a fresh cut slide and a nice example, usually you can see that it's blue mucin. Not all cases have a lot, but this is mucin and degenerated collagen. Usually there's a decreased amount of fibroblasts in this area. It's because the collagen's starting to kind of die and the fibroblasts are dying in here or degenerating. So the term we use for this is necrobiosis. It's kind of a fancy term for kind of subtle necrosis of the dermal collagen, usually with mucin, and usually surrounded by palisaded or lined up ring of histiocytes. Now, palisaded means like a picket fence-like or fence-like arrangement, and these are not really that great. Like sometimes they really line up in a nice, perfect wall of histiocytes all layered, but more often they're kind of irregular like this. So this kind of irregular, slightly palisaded ring of histiocytes surrounding degenerated collagen with mucin. This is the perfect classic feature of Granuloma annulare, which is an idiopathic granulomatous process. And the word annular is from the Latin for a ring. And it's kind of cool because it is both ring-shaped microscopically in most cases. Sometimes it's kind of a vague, subtle ring, but you can kind of see a ring of histiocytes wrapping around this central necrobiosis. But it's also ring-shaped clinically. It looks like an annular ring-shaped lesion, kind of with a raised edge and a flat or maybe slightly depressed center, depending on the case. Not all cases make a ring, but I really find it quite satisfying that it's both annular / ring-shaped clinically and microscopically in many cases. Now, not always. Some cases microscopically, particularly if you don't get a nice cut through the middle, just show histiocytes that trickle between the collagen here, okay? So I'd like to point that out. The histiocytes in Granuloma annulare are often vaguely aggregated rather than tightly formed into tight nodular granulomas like we saw in that last case of foreign body granuloma, okay? So that's one important thing to note, that it's granulomatous, but the granuloma here is not your beautiful classic granuloma of like sarcoidosis or tuberculosis or a foreign body reaction. The granuloma in this entity is much more vague, subtle, kind of lazily grouped histiocytes. I think that's an important thing for pathology-trained people to recognize, that many things that we call granulomatous in dermpath are not actually well-formed nodular granulomas, okay? What we usually mean are rich in histiocytes. Sometimes we mean just the infiltrate has a lot of histiocytes in it, and we'll call things like granulomatous drug eruption, often just has kind of an increased histiocyte density in addition to lymphocytes and some other findings, and we'll say, oh, it's granulomatous. So we use the word granulomatous and granuloma very loosely in dermatopathology, I would like to say, compared to the rest of pathology. I think so, at least. So don't be surprised by that when you start dermpath. It's also worth noting that the word granuloma sometimes came from historical names based on the clinical appearance, and the word granuloma was because the forefathers of dermatology thought that clinically the lesion looked like a granulomatous thing. But now, after further examination, after we developed microscopes and started looking, we realized, oh, there's actually no granuloma at all microscopically, okay? A couple good examples of this are pyogenic granuloma, which is actually a form of hemangioma, lobular capillary hemangioma. No granuloma at all. The only granuloma there is in the name, not microscopically. Another example would be a granuloma faciale, which has a mixture of all sorts of inflammatory cells that fill the dermis, lymphocytes, histiocytes, plasma cells, neutrophils, eosinophils, but really no granuloma formation whatsoever. Just the granulomas in the name only. And there are other examples we won't go into. So just be aware of that. Some things are called granuloma clinically, but have no granuloma or really no histiocytes microscopically. Other things are called granuloma because they have increased histiocytes but don't form nice, well-formed granulomas. So that's an important thing to know about granuloma, the word granuloma in dermatopathology. Back to granuloma annulare. The histiocytes here form vague aggregates around the edge of the necrobiotic collagen and mucin, and then they trickle and intercalate between dermal collagen bundles, kind of wrapping around and entrapping these pink dermal collagen bundles. The reason that's important is, A, that's a pretty common classic finding that is almost always present in GA in my experience. The other reason I want to bring it up is that if you don't see the central necrobiosis and you just have this, it looks an awful lot like the edge, the peripheral edge of a dermatofibroma. Dermatofibromas classically have collagen entrapment at their periphery, and that's also what GA does. And when you just have this pattern of collagen trapping and don't see good mucin, we actually call this the interstitial pattern of GA, or interstitial granuloma annulare. In my experience, I feel that usually, even though we call it like it's a separate variant, I feel like it's really a microscopic pattern that we see when we're just sectioning the edge of GA. Oftentimes on deeper sectioning, I'll find areas that look better for regular GA. So I have had a hard time finding a good case of interstitial GA that is only interstitial by itself. And oftentimes I kind of get backed into that diagnosis, and I feel like it's usually just that we're just not getting the best area on the biopsy or on the section we're looking at. So in any case, just so you know, that interstitial pattern, when you see that alone, think about granuloma annulare for histiocytes trapping collagen. Even if you don't see the mucin, consider cutting deeper or trying a mucin stain. Look at the clinical to see if it could be GA clinically. All right. Another thing, so I would think it's fair actually, and I think early residents often struggle, and on cases they'll think of dermatofibroma in the differential with GA, and I think that's totally fair and reasonable to recognize that those can look similar at the periphery. You just will not have a central zone of mucin in DFs. As I said earlier in the full video of this session, dermatofibroma, despite having many, many morphologic variants, myxoid is really not one of them. I've never seen a really good example of a DF with abundant myxoid change. I've rarely seen focal myxoid or mucin change, but very rare and very focal. So DFs have a lot of flavors, but myxoid ain't one, okay? If you think it's a myxoid DF, you better go think of some other things first, okay? Like scleromyxedema, like we talked about earlier, or like GA. All right. The other thing that can do this pattern, that is another granulomatous disease that we're not going to go into here, is there's a group of granulomatous diseases called reactive granulomatous dermatitis, and they encompass a spectrum of diseases, including interstitial granulomatous dermatitis, which tends to have a lot of collagen trapping, and some of the collagen bundles float and are wrapped tightly by histiocytes with a little space, but they're nice palisading. And then there's also, when there's it looks like GA but has neutrophils in it, a lot of neutrophils, there's something called palisaded neutrophilic and granulomatous dermatitis. So the abbreviations or the acronyms for those are IGD and PNGD. And the reason it's good to recognize them is they both kind of have overlap with granuloma annulare, but oftentimes have an unusual clinical presentation that's more extensive than GA, and they look more robust or more unusual microscopically, and they often are associated with internal systemic diseases. They can be drug-related, they can be associated with rheumatoid arthritis or other rheumatologic disease. Sometimes they can be associated with leukemia or lymphoma or internal cancers. So oftentimes in those cases, patients need more workup. That does not apply in a case like this of classic granuloma annulare. That fits with classic granuloma annulare clinically, all right? Oh yeah, GA often has eosinophils. That's a common finding, actually. I don't feel like people talk about it a lot, but I often see EOs in GA. I think some people have found like 30% or so of GA have EOs. Okay, the last thing I was going to mention is that in your differential between dermatofibroma and GA, hypopigmented blue nevus also traps collagen at the periphery. It can look a lot like a DF, maybe a little bit like a GA, but usually the cells are thinner in blue nevus, and they're almost always going to be a little bit of melanin. Even in the very hypopigmented blue nevus, there'll be some melanin. So that's a differential you can keep in mind. Hypopigmented DF, hypopigmented blue nevus, dermatofibroma, and the interstitial areas at the edge of granuloma annulare all have collagen trapping and can look alike. Okay, the final thing I got distracted from at the beginning, apologies for that, is that I said GA is annular or ring-shaped microscopically usually, and also usually clinically. Clinically, GA presents as ring-shaped lesions. I did mention that, and so it's important to remember that that sometimes it will get confused with other things that are annular and ring-shaped, like dermatophyte fungal infection or tinea, sometimes known as ringworm outside of dermatology circles and to the non-medical public, okay? So those can be ring-shaped, usually more scaly and less indurated, but that's another thing. So if they thought it looked like a tinea clinically, and then I start seeing histiocytes microscopically, we're probably dealing with granuloma annulare. And then also there are forms of lupus that clinically, like SCLE form of lupus, can make ring-shaped lesions clinically, and so that's another thing. If they were thinking about lupus and you see histiocytes microscopically, maybe it's actually granuloma annulare. All right. Sometimes granuloma annulare, though, presents just as papules, particularly like on the dorsal fingers or dorsal hand. And so that form doesn't have necessarily a ring shape. And also there's a deep form of granuloma annulare that often presents as one or multiple nodules deep down in the subcutis on the lower extremity, usually of kids or young adults. And it will look like this, usually a lot bigger and more robust, and it'll be down deep in the subcutis a lot of times, and can sometimes mimic rheumatoid nodule. So we got a lot of talking done about granuloma annulare. I'll put some links below to give you more things to look at in this differential. This is a nice classic one, but it's a good disease to familiarize yourself with because there's a lot of different flavors and topics that kind of tangentially relate to this pattern and to this disease. All right, that brings us to the very end of the session. The dermatologists went off to clinic long ago, and since they weren't here, I got a lot more long-winded and verbose, but hopefully some of you online found it useful. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll put links below in the video description.